Welcome back to Amerisogyny. I'm your host, Hannah Blue. You're listening to episode 60, How Gentle Parenting is Creating Narcissists. Now, some might say, that's a bit harsh, and others might agree it's spot on. I researched the subject of gentle parenting, and here's what I found. Many think it's not working. Now, on the surface, gentle parenting looks like it could be okay. Yet as we dissect it and begin to pull back the layers, it becomes clear why some people feel it's not working. So how did gentle parenting become so popular? Sarah Ockwell-Smith is a British author. In 2016, she wrote the Gentle Parenting book. Now, according to Ockwell-Smith, gentle parenting is an authoritative parenting style, and we're going to get into parenting styles in a minute. In 2014, she wrote a blog and said, gentle parenting is parenting with your child's feelings in mind as much as possible, and then taking those feelings into consideration when deciding how to react. She implores the parent to place themselves in the child's shoes and think, would I like it if somebody did this to me? If the answer is no, then why would you do it to your child? On that, I agree. Now, her concept took off. Some parents loved the emphasis on cultivating independence and self-confidence, as opposed to strict obedience and external validation. Mary Benedetti is a psychotherapist who works with kids and their families in Toronto. She says, parenting advice based on attachment research, trauma research, and neuroscience is extremely valuable to children. I agree with her on that. She says, clear, kind, but firm limits are needed. Gentle parenting works only when there are ground rules in place for what constitutes acceptable behavior and caregivers who consistently uphold consequences when those lines are crossed. So agree with that. Here's where gentle parenting gets messy. Gentle parenting is open to subjective interpretation. And once it went viral and got on TikTok, and all of these people started bringing their own narrative to what gentle parenting should be, it opened the door to confusion. It's one thing to receive advice from a professional about your child in private. It's quite another to receive advice from someone on social media. Keep in mind, TikTok was created for views, and people are going to say whatever they think is going to resonate with enough people so that they get the numbers they want. I'm saying they might have an agenda. Trust and believe they're on TikTok for a reason. When you have something that is open to interpretation, everybody is going to have their own definition as to what gentle parenting is. You also need to factor in how parents were raised. If the parents were subject to abuse or neglect, of course, they're going to gravitate towards gentle parenting. They're going to try to shield their kids from whatever they went through. And that's okay. But gentle parenting fails if the child is throwing tantrums on a whim, respects no one, and curses out their parents. I think too many people saw the term gentle in gentle parenting and decided the child would not have to face consequences for their actions. And some kids are given so much authority and control, they don't feel they have to respect anyone, not their parents, not teachers, police, no one. Some of these kids become self-absorbed, entitled, and arrogant, and that places them on the direct path to developing narcissistic tendencies. With no boundaries, gentle parenting is nothing but permissive parenting, and research shows that permissive parenting has a high correlation with antisocial behavior, high levels of aggressiveness, and lack of self-regulation. And as a result, the child is unable to form meaningful relationships, and that could certainly interfere with their psychological well-being over the course of their lifespan. Anna Lussenberg is a child behavior interventionist, and she's known as Annie the Nanny. According to her, she has seen gentle parenting bottom out. Annie the Nanny says many of her clients are former gentle parents. They ended up with kids who throw tantrums on a whim, bite, and put holes in walls. According to Lussenberg, with gentle parenting, there is this constant hyper-focus on helping your kids deal with big feelings. But who says they're big? The adults. When we hyper-focus on negative feelings, we start feeling worse rather than better. When gentle parenting goes wrong, everyone takes note. Here's the problem. Emphasizing a child's feelings puts the child in the driver's seat, when in fact, it should be the adult. According to Lussenberg, when you stop doing whatever it is you are doing and you let your day be dictated by their behavior, you stop leading, which makes children very uncomfortable. You're looking to them to tell you things are okay instead of them looking to you. On that, I agree. It is not the child's responsibility to lead. It is the parents'. When more emphasis is placed on self-advocacy than respecting others, it's going to go downhill. It's okay to acknowledge a child's feelings, but when you let those feelings put them in charge, that's not gentle parenting at all. That's irresponsible parenting. According to some parents who practice gentle parenting, telling a child no is abuse. I don't agree with that at all. Walking on eggshells and bending over backwards is no way to parent a child. Did you give birth to the child, or did the child give birth to you? In my day, we were raised to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. Yes, sir, and no, sir, automatically. Kids today? No, a lot of them don't say it automatically, if they say it at all. Some people interpret gentle parenting as being your child's friend rather than their parent. And these are the kids you can't even take to somebody's house because they'll wreck it. Instead of the parent looking to the child to be respectful of other people's homes, they blame adults who won't allow their kids in their homes because they lack boundaries and respect. By the time they reach their teens, they're entitled. And they feel everyone should follow the beat of their drum because their parents do. And I'm sorry, that's just not the way the world works. Never telling your child no doesn't do them any favors. Overindulgence sets kids up to never take accountability for their own actions. I get that some people had very abusive and strict parents, so they want to correct their past and overcompensate by being too kind and letting them get away with murder. That is not parenting. That's not preparing them for the real world, because I promise you, their bosses are not going to bend over backwards for them. A judge is not going to bend over backwards for them, and teachers aren't going to bend over backwards either. When you have teachers quitting their jobs because they don't want to see your kid coming, gentle parenting is not the way to go. If you don't feel you should tell your kids no sometimes, I guarantee you they will be told no more than once in their lifetime. And throwing a tantrum isn't going to cut it. It's not going to get them what they want. If kids don't respect their parents, why would they respect anyone else? As I said before, there are no clear-cut guidelines on what gentle parenting is. A lot of these gentle parenting videos on social media show that you are supposed to be mild and gentle and kind when a child is screaming at you and throwing tantrums. Another key factor these videos fail to note: gentle parenting is supposed to be an extension of authoritative parenting. Psychologist Diana Bumrine identified authoritative parenting in the 1960s. According to the American Psychological Association, authoritative parents are nurturing, responsive, and supportive, yet also set firm limits for their children. That's the key. There are firm boundaries in place. Unlike authoritarian parents, who are the do it because I said so parents, authoritarian parents explain nothing to their children, and it's their way or the highway. And authoritarian parents are often confused with authoritative. Authoritative parents regulate children's behavior by explaining the rules, having discussions, and using reasoning. They may listen to a child's point of view, but they don't always accept it or agree with it. That's the balance. Children raised by authoritative parents display good behavior, are successful in school, and are independent and self-reliant. There is a lower likelihood of developing depression and anxiety and engaging in substance abuse. According to research, having at least one authoritative parent has a significant positive impact on a child's well-being. I think Dr. Kathy Gutentag summed it up perfectly. She says, gentle parenting is more lenient and less rigid than authoritarian parenting, which sets strict rules for children but is firmer and more structured than permissive parenting, which has almost no boundaries. And when parenting has little to no boundaries, that means the lines between permissive and gentle parenting are blurred. Now, that's not to say that everyone who practices gentle parenting doesn't believe in discipline. Sarah Ockwell-Smith got it right. Gentle parenting is supposed to be a form of authoritative parenting, but it got misconstrued on social media. Authoritative parenting has always been around, long before TikTok. Now, research doesn't say that authoritative parenting causes behavioral challenges, but the permissive parenting style certainly does. A good research study on attachment styles was done by Dr. Diane Benoit, and it's called Infant-Parent Attachment, Definition, Types, Antecedents, Measurement, and Outcome. Let's take a detour and talk about attachment styles and how they influence parenting. The attachment theory was proposed by John Bowlby, a psychologist, in the 1940s. According to Bowlby, the attachment theory helps explain how humans form relationships with others. Most importantly, how caregivers respond to babies and children influences how they relate to others throughout their entire lifespan. Bowlby and another psychologist, Mary Ainsworth, developed the 4 primary attachment styles: secure, preoccupied anxious, dismissive avoidant, and fearful disorganized. So what do these attachment styles mean? Let's get into it. The secure attachment is considered the healthiest. People who have a secure attachment style had parents who were responsive to their needs, consistent in their care, and offered safety and security. People who have the secure attachment style are usually self-reliant, emotionally stable, have high self-esteem, and are compassionate. They're usually better at navigating challenges and have a lower risk of developing depression. These are the ones who do well in long-term romantic relationships. They are less likely to cheat and are better at resolving conflict. People with avoidant attachment may have had parents who did not take care of their basic needs, such as food or shelter. With this insecure attachment, the baby or child doesn't feel safety or security, and as a result, they become unresponsive toward their parents or parent. The infant or child feels rejected by their parents. So in order to protect themselves, they shut down emotionally and avoid the caretaker. People who have an avoidant attachment style don't trust anyone but themselves. They are often emotionally detached. They don't really seem to care about others. They may not be warm or friendly, and they're often viewed as standoffish. As these people don't trust others, it is very hard for them to enter into loving, secure relationships. They like their independence and fear emotional rejection from others. It is difficult for them to be vulnerable. They may be cold or unfeeling, and this makes them terrible partners in a relationship. The anxious attachment style is another form of insecure attachment, and it's similar to avoidant attachment. These are the people who had caretakers that were not emotionally available to them. In their past, they may have received little to no compassion. They may be extremely clingy, and they know it, and exhibit a consistent fear of rejection. People with anxious attachment may have high levels of neuroticism, meaning in their minds, the world is unsafe and distressing. Highly neurotic people tend to be anxious, tense, and withdrawn, and feel very dissatisfied with themselves and their lives. They are prone to negative emotions, anxiety, depression, anger, or guilt. Being self-reliant or managing challenging situations may be difficult for them. They also may be introverted and have issues opening up to strangers. I say may because these attachment styles are not set in stone. People who are anxiously attached may want close, intimate relationships. However, they are consistently fearful of being abandoned. These are the people who may need more reassurance from their partners. As they are clingy and overdependent, they may not respect boundaries. These are the ones who tend to worry that something is going wrong, and they may imagine conflicts that don't exist. Disorganized attachment is a third type of insecure attachment. A baby might experience a lack of emotional responsiveness from their caretaker, but instead of showing avoidant or anxious behaviors, they show inconsistent or disorganized behaviors. Disorganized attachment can develop from having an intense fear of a caretaker, especially if they were neglected or abused. Disorganized attachment is often associated with emotional instability. These are the people who have personalities that are controlling or rigid. And this attachment style is sometimes linked to borderline personality disorder. People with BPD struggle to maintain emotional relationships with others. You might get along with them fine for a while, but eventually they're going to bring conflict, and it changes the entire tone of your relationship. In my opinion, interacting with someone with BPD is a roller coaster. You may go for weeks or months getting along with this person, and all of a sudden, they switch up on you. People with BPD love you one minute and hate you the next. It's never consistent. People who have disorganized attachment styles do not make good romantic partners. If you've ever had a relationship with someone who has a disorganized attachment style, when things aren't going great, you may feel like you're walking on eggshells. And some of you listening to me know exactly what I mean. In all, the way we were parented as children greatly impacts our personalities and what will happen in our future relationships. Now, as I said, these attachment styles are not set in stone. Sometimes people who were insecurely attached as kids go on to have healthy relationships. Okay, so those are the attachment styles. Let's get into parenting styles. The authoritarian parenting style. As I said before, these are the because I said so parents. They are very strict and do not like to be questioned. They exact very high standards on their children and are often quick to punish. They are very rigid absolutely no flexibility in their rules. It is their way or the highway. Many children of authoritarian parents are well behaved and are good at following directions, but they may be ambivalent in making decisions and may grow up with a lifelong fear of their parents. A lot of Gen Xers had authoritarian parents. If your parent ever said to you, "Don't let the street light beat you home," that meant have your behind in the house before dark. If there was something on your plate you didn't like, guess what? You didn't eat. Whatever meal was put on the table, kids didn't have a say-so in what they ate. The authoritative parenting style is often the favorite parenting style because, while there's no argument as to who's in charge, and that is the parent, the child has the opportunity to experience warmth and flexibility. Unlike authoritarian parents, authoritative parents explain the reasons behind their rules. They also provide consequences if they are broken. Authoritative parents may listen to their child's opinions, but the decision is not in the hands of the child. The parents make the final decision. Many authoritative parents are close with their kids and have nurturing relationships. These are the kids who grow up to be confident and responsible and manage their emotions well. Unlike authoritarian parents who say, either you eat it or you eat nothing, authoritative parents may let their children choose what they want to eat for dinner. Now, I've been talking about permissive parenting a lot. Let's look at what it is. These are the parents who focus on being their child's best friend. They want to have open communication. They have low expectations of their kids and set little to no boundaries. Discipline is nearly non-existent. With permissive parents, the children make their own decisions. They decide what they're going to eat, when they're going to go to bed, and whether or not they're going to do their homework. And while some of these kids may have good self-esteem and social skills, they may also be impulsive, demanding, rigid, and do not have the ability to control their emotions. Permissive parents bend over backwards for their children. They do not want their children to experience rejection or failure. And this is what sets them up for precisely that. Because having little to no rules sets the child to enter adulthood being unprepared for the world. Permissive parents may bow down to their children, but the world will not. The last parenting style is called the neglectful parenting style. They pay very little attention to their children and neglect their basic needs. But sometimes there are factors that the parent cannot control. They may have mental health issues. They may work a lot of hours to support their family. They may be a single parent who is doing it all. Kids of neglectful parents oftentimes grow up to be resilient and self-sufficient, and that's because they had to be. They may have issues controlling their emotions and are at risk of not developing effective coping strategies. They may struggle to maintain social relationships. They may have low self-esteem and be drawn to the wrong people. With neglectful parents, there could be physical neglect. There could be supervisory neglect. These are the types who will leave their kids with anyone. They may be too drunk or high to care for the child, or they may leave their kids at home without proper supervision while they go to work. The last is emotional neglect. They may allow their kids to drink alcohol at a young age. Neglectful parents might abandon their kids. Children with neglectful parents may struggle with failure to thrive, developmental delays, hyperactivity, low self-esteem, drug abuse, aggression, or running away from home. According to research, high levels of emotional neglect has a strong correlation to developing depression. Now, while children of neglectful parents may experience abuse, not all neglective parents are abusive, and not all abusive parents are neglectful. Now, what can be done to help these parents and their children? Therapy, mental health treatment, making contact with social services. Social workers can assist with food insecurity and childcare, and they may help the parent to receive treatment for substance abuse. In most states across the U.S., parenting classes are available. Now, we know far too often some kids fall through the cracks in the system, but it doesn't have to always be that way. Teachers are another good resource. Instead of alienating your child's teacher, work with them. In conclusion, entitled, self-absorbed children often grow up to be entitled, disrespectful adults. They'll grow up to have issues in every area of their lives. Work, family, love, it doesn't matter. If a child grows up getting their way all the time, lashing out and talking back, having zero respect for their parents and other authority figures, there is no way they'll be successful in life. There is too much coddling going on. If you have to bring your parent to a job interview, you are not ready for the workforce. What's going to happen if these kids encounter an issue on their job? Are they going to bring their mommy and daddy? And I'm not being insensitive. This is how I see it. Now, parents of kids with special needs, hey, you are excluded from the conversation. In those situations, high parental involvement is key. But if your child is not struggling with a mental health disorder, there's no excuse. I don't believe in kicking kids out at 18 because there's nothing that says a kid is fully mature and ready to be on their own at 18. And I'm speaking from my own experience. I moved out when I was 18, but I wasn't ready to be on my own. I think kids should live with their parents until they feel they're ready to move out on their own. But in the meantime, the parent should be teaching life skills and coping skills. If you hold your kid by the hand and do everything for them, you are enabling that child. I was watching a video with an older lady, maybe in her 70s, and she was explaining how she raised her son, that she raised him as his mother, and she affirmed she was not his friend. He was not to treat her as if she were one of his friends. I understood that, but some people in the comments went berserk. I'm my kid's friend first and foremost, and my kid can rely on me. She never said her son couldn't rely on her. That's not what she said. She said very clearly she did not allow her son to treat her like a friend. No cussing in front of her, no inappropriate behavior in front of her, period. And that's the issue. When you have a parent who's unable to control their emotions, they produce children who do the same. If you are that fired up by a parent who says, I am not my kid's friend, I am their parent first, the issue isn't the parent you're listening to. The issue is you. You are the same parents who have kids cussing you out, disrespecting you and others, overly dependent on you, but you're not going to admit that on social media. And I'm not preaching. How people raise their children is their business. But when it starts affecting society, when we start wondering why we have all these narcissists walking around, pretty soon we have to take into consideration how they were raised. And that's just that. I do not advocate for permissive parenting. There is no value in giving kids complete control. They are not ready for it. The only thing they're being raised to do is fail. And I'm out of time. If you learned anything from this episode, feel free to follow me. By now you know where. Podbean, Samsung, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and more. This is our 60th episode, folks, and I am so happy to be back and talking to you. The weekend is here, folks. I will be back with more stories. Be easy. Have an awesome weekend. Take care of yourselves. And as always, God bless